An NBC News investigation revealed that at least 808 foul ball injuries occurred to fans between the years of 2012 to 2019. Some of the more serious injuries include concussions and permanent vision loss. Jordan Skopp is a Brooklyn-based realtor and a lifelong baseball fan who founded Foul Ball Safety Now, a campaign he started to look into the matter of fans being injured and maimed by foul balls, all because of a lack of protective netting in the 150 major and minor league ballparks across America. He started the endeavor in part because he believed there was a severe lack of education for fans when it comes to the risk of attending ball games. He joined me this week to dive into the matter in greater detail. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know how informed you are on this subject, but I clearly want to talk to you as long as you need for me to engage.
Well, Jordan, as an old sports reporter, I'm always excited to talk some sports and keeping fans safe when they head out to the ballpark. So I want to welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to talk to you about baseball safety this afternoon. Great to see you, and
Nice to see you.
thank you for being here. Absolutely. So, Jordan, you tell me that you're dedicated to making sure that the fans who are injured at a baseball game have access to appropriate compensation, and you want to make sure that Major League Baseball does their part in making sure that everybody's safe when they're at the ballpark. So, I'm wondering if you can tell me all about your mission there, buddy.
Sure. So just to start out, this is an independent organization of Major League Baseball. It's an advocacy organization. It was just started by me, and it slowly became people telling me their stories from years past and from the present day of being hurt by foul balls at games. It's not like a once in every 10 or 20 years kind of endeavor. It happens all the time. Every week or every 2 weeks, somebody's getting seriously injured. It could be a black eye, it could be a lost eye. And that's unfortunate. And that's what I found out, that most families are really not alert to the fact that these injuries do happen throughout baseball. There's minor leagues and major leagues. We're talking about 150 ballparks of operation where these incidents occur over and over again.
Yeah, and you're also the founder of PowerBallSafetyNowcom, dedicated to increasing fan awareness on this issue and the dangers of foul ball injury. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the website and the inroads you're making in this
Sure.
regard. Yeah.
Sure. So the website is anyone who wants to pay attention to foul ball safety, as I've been doing. It would be really great if the regulatory agencies were alerted to this fact 50 years ago. There was a young boy who died in 1970, a 14-year-old boy at Dodger Stadium. And I think that was the time for sure where regulatory agencies should have come in and mandated netting, because it's not a matter of if somebody's going to be crushed by a foul ball, it's when. And most people who go to games don't really think of it that way. They have some sense of foul balls coming, but it's mostly looked at with like fun and games. Like, oh, maybe we'll catch a foul ball. I don't think anyone has in mind the 100-mile-an-hour coming at them. And these incidences happen all the time. Fortunately, more misses than hits. But clearly, I think once families realize this, that their growing families were at risk all these years, they're going to have their epiphany of outrage, because they're going to ask the question, did anyone have prior knowledge of these 100-mile-an-hour missiles coming into the sections where our children were playing or looking or just having a good time watching the ball game? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. And I do compare baseball to big tobacco. And unfortunately, tobacco and their organization knows the risks, and the warning labels that we may have grown up with, which were very small, did not really do the job in curbing smoking. Same thing here. Baseball knows that maiming is part of the game, and they keep coming up with answers and responses when they're confronted with the foul ball issue, saying things like, well, our fans, they really are not interested in nets. But the bottom line is, we weren't interested in wearing seatbelts possibly, but the regulatory agencies came in and said, it's not up to the families. It's up to us to say, you need to put on the belts. Same thing with the regulatory agencies. Nets should have been up a half a century ago. Families have been coming out to games year after the year with their growing families. And unfortunately, there are sad stories every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you tell me that conservatively that about 5,000 people have been injured, some seriously, during their time at a ballpark. So I'm wondering if you can dive a little bit deeper into the scope of this problem and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, sure. So that was an NBC report, and it was able to come up with 808 injuries over an 8-year period. But that was mostly from only 4 teams complying to the data. So if you took in the other 26 and did some multiplication, an LA Times reporter came up with 4,500 injuries. I came up with 5,000. But these incidences, some of them could have been a broken fingernail or a broken finger. Unfortunately, some of them were serious head injuries, concussions, and unfortunately a death in 2018 of a woman, Linda Goldblum, at the Dodger game. The 2 deaths that actually occurred from fans over the 50 years have been both at Dodger Stadium. Why am I passionate about this? I felt like it's long overdue that baseball fans in the know, like myself, can do something about it. We're fans, we support the game, we love the game, but we also are informed because we get a sense that this is not an appropriate section to sit in with anyone. You know, if you're not wearing a mask or a glove, you have no reason to be there, because close calls on a regular basis is par for the course of attending a baseball game. And unfortunately, like I had mentioned, statistically speaking, on the major league level, there's 1 or 2, you know, in 2019, the last full major league season, there were 15 people maimed with like serious injuries in a 26-and-a-half-week season. So that's once every 2 weeks. And that's not even counting the minor leagues, where there's 3 times as many more games and less netting. So it's really, and I've been in touch, if you've seen the website, I've been in touch with governors and team owners and team sponsors saying enough is enough. Most fans are still coming to the game in 2021, not thinking this. And baseball knows this, and they don't want to make a sweeping mandate, you know, that netting needs to be here, there, and everywhere, because it'll open up a can of worms for them not taking action in the past. Sometimes the cover-up is worse than the actual scenario, the crime, or if you will. And since 1970, for 50 years, they've just been kicking the ball down the road and not really dealing with the problem. And regulatory agencies should have been here long, long ago. They're still not here.
Yeah, I know that you've gained national coverage from people like the LA Times and the Boston Globe, ESPN, and people. So tell me about how you've used the international attention to bring increased attention to this issue, and do you think the national attention has helped?
Well, it's helped a little bit. There still hasn't been a long article that I'm looking for that really covers all the details. These articles are really nice and they're helpful. We even had articles in Japan, the Japan Times and the Korean Times, because they have a culture in those countries where they're about respect and dignity and communication to their fans. Unfortunately, we're not. They have nets, appropriate netting. They have ushers and team attendants blowing whistles and warning people. They even show animation up on the scoreboard of a ball crushing someone and taking them to a hospital because they take it seriously. They want people, to be at the game and be mindful of the foul balls in certain sections. Now, unfortunately, in the United States, this year, when I surveyed 42 minor league ballparks, I connected with 42 out of nearly 100 that told me they still had no netting past the end of dugouts. That little girl who got hurt in Houston, the Almora incident, she was hurt past the end of the dugout. Still today, in 42 minor league cities, there's no netting past the dugouts. So it's almost like those fans just don't have any ideas. They're still coming to the game. They're still bringing their children. And really nobody should be there. Things are getting crushed past the end of the dugouts. One video I have in Arizona, you can Google and check. It's beer can, foul ball, Arizona. And a beer got crushed. Now that could have been a human being. And that was a 100-mile-an-hour ball from the look of it. So national attention's been great, but it's not steady. And I'm hoping, that some investigative journalist comes in and does a better job at me in conveying this to the general public.
Yeah, and I know, and part of that mission, you have an upcoming book on foul ball and fan safety. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about it.
Well, yeah, it's coming really soon. And what's happening is the interviews keep coming. So that's really great. I have a couple of teenagers that have interviewed who were hurt when they were like 10 years old and 4 years old. So they're talking about their experiences. Erwin Goldblum, who's the widower of Mrs. Goldblum, he's been to seven of my virtual Zoom press conferences, which has been really good. And he's becoming a really good speaker. So I have a handful of people that have been affected by this, but the number keeps growing because as I become more effective with social media, people are following me. Obviously, those 4,500 or 5,000 injuries over 8 years, some of those folks have not found me as of yet. So I believe this will be ongoing. People will want to tell their story from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the present day of their story. Because most people who unfortunately have that serious injury, a lot of them will stop watching baseball altogether. Baseball can't be decent about it. Their lawyers are telling them you can't apologize, because if you apologize, it's almost like an admission of guilt. And it's like, well, that would be the last person or incident that this would ever happen again, that kind of thing. And so they distance themselves. So these fans are left with, lost eyes, not watching baseball again, and bitter towards the industry of baseball.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. As a baseball fan myself, I commend you with trying to keep everybody safe at the ballpark. And I was born with spastic quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, as I shared with you at the beginning. And when I go to a baseball game, it's typically up higher because I have to sit in the handicap section. So I wanted to personally thank you for the work that you're doing there, buddy. It's most appreciated.
Well, I appreciate the questions, and thank you.
Yeah, and just following Jordan, I'm curious to ask you
Yeah.
about how do you think progress can be made and measured when we talk when we talk about this issue?
Well, there's a thing called the baseball rule, and that needs to be abolished immediately. And that's that rule that allows the balls to maim people and people have no recourse. I think if the baseball rule is abolished, I think that would force all the teams to immediately step it up, work with team architects, work with independent team and work with independent architects and engineers, almost like an independent netting council, and take the guidance of those folks. So those 150 ballparks can be certified as maiming free. So I think you would have that happen immediately once the baseball rule was abolished. If the baseball rule is abolished, they will clearly be liable possibly for past injuries and certainly for present injuries. So I think that would really start and ignite extended netting, appropriate netting, because it's above our pay grade. I'm not an engineer and architect. I want a sign in every ballpark, in all the 150 major and minor league ballparks, that hangs that says this ballpark is maiming free. Now, whether balls get up and get down and people have a chance to catch, or whether that could hurt their finger, well, maybe that's open for debate, but nobody should be rudely smacked in the face or their eye with 100-mile-an-hour line drive. So it's all open for conversation. So I encourage these discussions because unfortunately, there's not many of them. It's really up to me and my chorus of a few folks that keep showing up and finding new folks as we go. And clearly there'll be new folks that find us if we continue doing this so they can tell their story.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Jordan, if people want to get connected with you to support this mission, what's the best way they can do that?
Sure. So just go to Foul Ball Safety Now, and they'll see an info button, info at Foul Ball Safety Now, and have a look at everything we've done so far this year. Send me a message if you know anyone who's been injured by a foul ball and wants to talk on or off the record. Let's do it.
Fantastic, Jordan. Again, I really want to thank you for your time, energy, and efforts on my behalf. Your mission to make baseball safer and the fan experience is a notable one, and I want to wish you the best of luck as you can continue on this journey. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.